Hello, my name is John Reynolds. Welcome to Extraordinary Life Stories. On this episode, I'm talking with Lurata Lyon. Lurata is a survivor of civil war in former Yugoslavia, where she was kidnapped, suffering horrendous torture and abuse, and human trafficked. Escaping almost certain death, fleeing to the UK, she has literally rebuilt herself, physically and mentally. I so admire her lack of victim mindset. It's quite the opposite. She's inspiring and teaching people to be the healthiest, most confident and best version of themselves, whilst tirelessly campaigning to raise awareness about the horrors she experienced. I can't wait to talk with Lurata, so let's get into it. Lurata, thank you so much for joining me.
John, thanks so much for having me. I was so excited.
Me too. Tell me, who is Lurata Lyon?
I don't think I can wrap that up in one sentence.
I was wondering what you would say to that. Well, let me help you. Take me back to a young Lurata growing up. What were the early influences? Who and what kind of influenced you as a youngster?
I'm the only child. I was always the only child and grew up with two parents which were the doctor and a professor of languages. So I always sort of wanted to be like my dad, a doctor. And the only reason for that is because I watched him help people even without getting paid. And I always admired him for doing such charity. Amongst his work, he was like working over hours just to help people in general. So I really wanted to be like him and be a doctor and help people. That was my motto in life. I was like, I need to help people. I think I was born to always wanted to help. And they were also activists in human rights. So regardless of which nation in former Yugoslavia had troubles, and they would go into not so much riots, but just have against their will or whatever was going on, my dad and my mum always supported the majority that was struggling with whatever they were struggling, and so they stood for human rights.
Yeah.
And I always thought that was quite patriotic in a way, even though they weren't from any kind of ethnicity that they were supporting. The way they stood up for the people inspired me so much. I thought it was just such a hero kind of way to go about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a real empathy there, isn't there? There's a real connection where you want to give back to, human society, if you like, which actually is crushing to say that because, of course, fast forwarding through still really young years to 17-year-old Lurata, you had that snatched away from you.
So, John, looking back at the 17-year-old with loads of dreams, I wanted to be a doctor, as I mentioned, and the chances were very limited because we went through war. The war in Yugoslavia started really quite much earlier than when I was 17. But by the time I reached 17, when most children or adults now can go back thinking what they were thinking at that time, is basically what is it that we want to do with our life. I didn't have chance to decide what I wanted to do with my life.
It was taken away from you.
It was completely shattered. My dreams were shattered. And war hit us quite badly. We got singled out as a village to be massacred, same as has been the massacres in Bosnia and so on. To have survived that night of being singled out as the biggest Muslim village to be massacred, because my parents lived there, they were working, so we were amongst all the villagers. It was really quite life-changing for us. It shattered many people's dreams, just not just my own. It was a lot of people there with dreams and hopes, and it was just completely taken away. So from then on, my life was never the same again. It was all about running for our lives, basically. Surviving. So,
which is a big theme of your life, but in context of surviving, to be able to do that, from ultimately surviving the massacre, you were kidnapped.
I was, yeah.
And then talk me through, the sort of what followed next.
I ran away, so we couldn't really leave the country. It wasn't like leaving and going to Europe into safety. The borders were shut. We were in a frying pan. So my dad one day came to me and he said, listen, if you cross the mountain from Serbia to Kosovo, you might just be safe. And they've got the United Nations there. They've got the Red Cross as a charity supporting refugees. He said, if you can just get to the Red Cross, you'll be safe. I said, Dad, but we are Serbians and we are going into Kosovo. The borders are shut, even with Kosovo, because Serbia was at war with Kosovo at that point. He's like, just please listen to me, just do it. So I went illegally, I crossed the border, went to Kosovo. In the streets of Kosovo, I got found by 2 American police officers, which were serving with UN troops. And they decided to give me shelter because it wasn't safe for me to be with the Red Cross. Not because the Red Cross was bad, it's because the people that were running it during the war were corrupt. And what leads me to next is why Brian and Peter didn't want me in the Red Cross kind of camp. So from Peter and Brian's apartment where I was being given shelter, one day when they were at work, I got kidnapped by human trafficking, just literally taken and groomed because at that time I was a virgin and I was really underage and young and naive. So during the process of abuse, they found out that I was a virgin young girl, and they decided to groom me and sold me to the highest bidder. So they prepared me for my transport.
And did you know this was going on?
Yeah, because I speak Albanian fluently and I speak Serbian fluently, and they were communicating with me. So I was made to watch a lot of the acts. And it was, which actually it does bother me sometimes, more so than not, because sometimes you don't even feel sorry for yourself anymore. It's just what you witness that stays with you. Sorry. So I witnessed a lot.
I know. I know, and I don't want to take you into the depths because you have experienced the worst of human nature, if you can call it that. And from being human trafficked, you've had unbelievable abuse, and you've had to, ultimately, from coming out of that, as we sit here now, you've had to rebuild physically and mentally. I mean, you were, by the time you finally escaped, and I know I'm skipping through here.
I know.
And I don't want to miss out key points, but the abuse that you suffered, you physically had to have your face rebuilt. Mentally, there must have been times when you genuinely thought, I'm not going to get out of here. There is no escape. And the torture, if you like, that you were experiencing is something that no one should ever have to experience. And I just want to know how you survived, because I don't want to drag you through really difficult memories. But you're sitting here now and you have survived and you're flourishing. But what got you through that time?
Well, John, just to give listeners perspective, I was in a solitary confinement for 6 months. And being in a decent room for 6 months, not being allowed to leave a room, it can get very claustrophobic. You just put yourself in that position. So having been in a small dark room, grave-like for 6 months, with only a blanket and the cold floor, smelly floor, and then you, as you mentioned, abused mentally, physically, in every level you can imagine. I think that time did really take me into really the darkest, deepest of mental state one can be, because I wanted to die because it was extremely uncomfortable living there and the abuse I was enduring.
So you were ready to check out?
I already was ready to check out. I wasn't eating, I was starving myself. And then I realized it wasn't happening, although I was deformed, I was infected, I had infections on my ear, on my calf, because I was branded. And so there's a lot of things that were happening. I was ill and still being abused. And so there was one time when, because I couldn't see, it was such a dark room, there is no window in there, there was nothing that you could find comfort, only that smelly blanket that they gave me. And you can imagine that was 6 months, me just rotting in there. I had a epiphany. It was like a switch that just got turned on. And what I found was, and just by accident, I didn't know what I was doing, but I was so taken into thinking of Nelson Mandela and how he was, serving injustice, and he was like literally in prison. And then thinking about my mum and dad and all the good stuff and everything they showed me, the love and the care. And then the music that I enjoyed, I was singing to myself. And because I was enjoying this kind of escape, I realized that prison can be inflicted in you in a physical world, but mentally you can choose to be free. And I chose to find that escape through imagination. Imagination can be really strong if you choose to the point where when I was being physically abused in a sexual way, I was thinking of all these things. And I found whilst I was thinking of all these things, which sounds bizarre perhaps, to somebody listening right now, but I wasn't feeling the pain of physical abuse. So I was able to detach from the pain that I was enduring because it was violent abuse. And I realized at that point that I was switching to thinking, sometimes I would look at myself from over the body kind of experience and look at them and look at myself and think, what happened to these men as children that turned them into complete monsters? And that was teaching me compassion for people. I was almost like a saint looking at someone that's doing something wrong and saying, my God, you need healing. It was really weird, John. I can't even.
No, I think
we could talk here for hours.
No, it's incredible.
Yeah. And
there's
so,
almost forgiveness there as well, whilst it was happening.
It was
forgiveness, which is probably difficult for me to comprehend, let alone in watching or listening. But we haven't been through that. So you have, and you flick that switch, the power of the mind, living in your head. And I think when I asked you, how did you survive, is that you sort of manifested the fact that actually I can survive in here. But how did you actually survive and escape? So it sounds like you were literally, clearly imprisoned. So it's all very well surviving in here, but at a certain point you physically would have probably given up. Your body was being destroyed.
How
did you get out?
I was deformed. Eventually my dad, with a lot of help of different authorities, managed to find me, and they rescued me and sent me to the UK as a political asylum seeker, and I was very, very young. So yeah, I got into the UK legally. It was all completely set out for me to be here. And then I'm really grateful to the British government for what they did for me specifically, giving me the right to remain in the country immediately, giving me housing, giving me all the help that I needed with the doctors, with psychiatrists, everything. Literally, and I'm so grateful. And please, can I just thank everyone listening? Thank you for paying the taxes, because if you ever wondered, because sometimes I know this whole bittersweet with refugees coming in, because I pay taxes myself, and sometimes, you don't understand whether it's going to the right people. But if you're ever in doubt, I just say, just remember, if nothing else is gone to me and is given me second chance in life because of that.
Yeah, I think that's a really powerful message.
Yeah, I'm really thankful and grateful.
Yeah, and I think you've now escaped. You're here in the UK, and you've got an opportunity to heal and recover. Is that how you saw it, or did you almost have a moment where you took a sigh of relief and you've escaped a hideous situation, and then you've got to build again? Did you embrace that, or did you have a moment where you then kind of reflected and almost let it come back into the mind of what you've been through? Or were you always eyes forward and I've now escaped something awful, I can go?
Oh, I wish, but no, John, I think this is really important for everyone to remember. Same with soldiers or anyone that's been a victim of any abuse. Once they make it to safety, it's actually when PTSD really is quite at the highest and at the most dangerous point, because people feel suicidal, hence why we have so many people commit suicide. It's that the guilt, the shame, the way you can't process what had just happened, because it's so surreal what you witnessed that you can't process it. You can't fit in anymore. It's changed you forever. Even though you were a fighter and survivor and all of that, once you come into the normal world, so per se, that is a bit more safe, it's really hard to adjust, because everything that you see is not how you see it anymore. People, you almost wish people could see it with your own eyes, but unfortunately they don't, and it's good. So yes, I was on a suicidal watch for quite some time, and I didn't really want to live, and I was on medication that was numbing my depression. Until one day I decided to go to college. I got advised that it's a good idea to start doing something. And I thought, what would my mum and dad want me to do? Are they still alive? Because we separated. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to start studying. The least I can do, just give it a try. So I went to Hammersmith West College, which is based near Barons Court in London. And I started learning the language because I couldn't speak any word in English, and how's my English now?
Amazing. Better than most English people.
Oh, no, I don't think so.
So articulate.
But, you know, it just comes to show that if you apply yourself, you're bound to achieve something. So I went to school, put my head down, wasn't speaking to anyone from home or anyone that I met that spoke Albanian, Serbian. I just literally didn't want anyone to know who I was, what I was. I wanted a complete change of identity. I was so embarrassed what had happened to me. I was so guilty, and I felt so many different feelings that I can't put it into words. And then I discovered gym at the college, and I was going to the gym and doing the cross trainer. And so I started somehow feeling good about it. It became my ritual, and I wouldn't miss every day I was in the gym for 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And that's when I realized there is a way to feel good about stuff, starting with healthy eating, because I had to create a relationship with the food again, because I was starved and I was, you know, I wasn't in a good shape with my stomach. And I needed to make peace that I was so deformed, and slowly everything got to be fixed. My nose was so badly broken, couldn't breathe, and so it had to be reconstructed. A lot of things had to be fixed. But I needed to learn to love myself, but I didn't realize what was missing, and that was me loving myself. I've only just learned it most recently to really love myself when I started making little progress in life with forgiving others, managing my anger, because initially I was very angry, and we're talking about 20 years ago. So a lot of those things I had to learn. I had to be normal again, because everything was irritating me, and I was like, why are people always complaining about the weather? They don't understand what it means to be in a solitary confinement for 6 months. So that was going through my mind. Whereas now it's like, I see it differently. I'm like, look, people are allowed to complain about the weather. It's okay to complain about your life. It's okay. But as long as you don't let it take over, I much rather advise people to not complain and just say, I'm grateful, I'm lucky, it's a great day, even when it's not. And what could I do amazing today? Because it changes your mindset. But for me then, it was like, why is everybody complaining?
This is so funny. It was one of my questions or things I want to talk about is, particularly it seems like in England at the moment, everyone's moaning about something. It has been an awful winter for the weather. It's been a topical thing. There's cost of living crisis. We've all got our own issues and things to deal with. And yet when I knew I was going to be talking to you, and I knew you were going to be beaming and smiling and radiant and positive. It was like, actually, what do you say to someone that is struggling with the issues they've got, the things they see as a problem, coming from a place where you cannot even compare to what you've been through? And it's not about comparing, but the point is you've obviously put a routine or something in place that's got you to be able to be consistently like this. It is a habit, it is a mindset. What would you say to someone that's stressing about something, that listens to you now and goes, what have I got to complain about?
Well, I think, you know why we get ourselves into a proper knot? Sometimes we think it's external. And yes, sometimes it's, we can't avoid it. But I think the one thing that we're always missing, it's the piece of the puzzle, is the conversation we have with ourselves. So
the inner voice.
The inner voice, and it's always talking like 24 hours. When you're sleeping, it takes you places, or as soon as you wake up, it just attaches immediately to what happened yesterday. So I have this ritual. When I go to bed, I just think of all the good stuff about. I literally refuse to think about anything that remotely was negative or whatever, or didn't go my way. I just think of all the amazing stuff. And I know it sounds cliche, but honestly, it really works. Then it helps me with how I dream. Because let's just take an example. If I was to reflect back on having a bad day, then when I'm sleeping, I'm immediately going back to my little room when I was taken, and it's so loads of nightmares. But I've noticed since I've changed the way I think before bed, So I think of good stuff, and I'm grateful my kids are healthy. It was such a good day. I met John today. What a wonderful interview, you know. And you take these things for granted. You think, but it was only an interview. No, it was a really positive interview. You managed to share your content. You managed to share some goodness with the world. It's another platform to share. So things like that. Or, you know, you go to work, you have a job. Be grateful for that. You can walk, you can see.
Find the things you can be grateful for. Rather, it's almost like don't water the weeds, water the flowers.
Yeah, just things.
Which I struggle with. It's that inner voice.
Yeah,
you know,
inner
this
voice.
is one of the, and I think you've again, I keep using this word articulate, but you've articulated it so well.
It can drag you down.
And the other thing is,
yeah,
a lot of people can have a victim mindset. Why me? Why did this have to happen to me? I don't get any of that from you, apart from just interestingly the fact that you almost felt guilty for something that was clearly nothing to do with your fault. But that has shifted. That shifted from that moment when you were in your low PTSD moment to right now. There's no victim mindset at all. It's like, you know what? I manage my emotions. I manage my day. Positive. How can I be the best version of myself? So that advice you just given for me is golden, because it does feel like going back to, you know, people I'm talking to sometimes and so on. There's a little bit of like feeling sorry for themselves and I don't know what to do. And it's like you just need to talk to Lurata.
Well, look, I mean, not everyone has to go through war, through kidnapping to relate to what I'm saying. We are talking about feelings. Feelings is a universal experience. Hence why when you tell someone, oh, I was in love or I'm in love, they can relate to it. Or I'm in pain, they know, oh, pain. But regardless of what the pain is. So if you, a victim, for example, you just mentioned, you know, you can be a victim. Yes, anybody can be a victim of anything if they choose to. Being a victim is not really a choice, and I keep saying this, it's not a choice. You can fall a victim of an accident on the road, victim of anything, bullying at school, at home, abusive relationship, losing your job. Those are all like little bits of victim that you can be of. But then you can remain as a victim for as long as you want, but it won't get you far. You have to then think, okay, what did it teach me? Because that's how I changed the way I thought about me being a victim of war, a victim of kidnap and abuse. I thought, oh, but what did it teach me? Ultimately, it taught me love and compassion. And that's why I practice it in every day, in every person I meet, no matter how rude they are to me. I stay in this loving energy because I think they need it. If they're being rude to me when I'm completely zen, then they must need the love.
Yeah.
And then I choose to be a survivor of that. That's why I remain love. I want people to see that love is possible and compassion is possible. Forgiveness is possible. So stay a victim or be a survivor and a thriver. And I'm using that as a fuel to do good.
Yeah, you are. And I love the fact that you've been through these atrocious things that happened to you, and yet you haven't lost the love. You haven't lost the faith in human beings, because let's be honest, you know, you could have easily done just how can people do this and treat another human like this? And actually what you've done is you've flipped it full circle. You're helping so many people. You know, when I was regardless of the fact that we'd met and had amazing conversations, but before today, if you read anything about you and you look at what you're doing, you're trying to be the best version of yourself so that you can help so many other people, which is amazing, coming from a place of lived experience. And on that, if you were to be able to go back to being 17-year-old Lurata and stop time and not have the kidnapping that led to all the things that happened, and you could live a different life, would you change it?
No.
Wow.
No, because I really don't know who I would be. I don't want to go back and find out. I love whoever I become. I love the lessons. I think life is the biggest university you can ever be in. A long life university, you never stop learning. I love that university for me in a life kind of way was so difficult. It's taught me so much. I'm really grateful. Although I don't have a diploma.
But you said it, life's university, right?
Life is a university.
I've got 2 children growing up. So, you know, for me, a big why behind this program is to inspire them with people like you. Thank you. To watch a half-an-hour program with you talking like this. I mean, you can't learn this in school. The school's got its place. Yeah. But, you know, to understand how to not have victim mindset and a lot of what is mindfulness, self-development, which actually is not taught in school. No. And I think that's probably something I wanted to bring up with you, if you came into school and did an inspirational talk just by being you, the captivating side of the children listening would be so much more inspiring than playing with a Bunsen burner. I shouldn't say playing, but there's a certain amount of outdated curriculum for me with the education curriculum. What needs to be done, do you think, early in schools to be able to empower children to feel they have got more confidence in themselves and teach some of what you talk about now that's not being taught in schools?
Actually, that's such a good idea, because I was based in Singapore for 5 years with my family, with my husband and 2 kids. And I was talking on stages a lot, and I was talking for the embassies. I was trying to raise awareness and raise funds for women of abuse and so on. And then someone heard me speak, so I got invited to Dulwich College to speak and coach the children, and also local schools invited me. And this was all done as a gesture of goodwill from me. I didn't want anything, because I really want, I think, like you, everything starts from a young age. And if we can sort of lecture or inform our children in the nicest possible way what's going on in the world, they will not be scared, they will not be naive, they will be more confident handling situations, whether it's a failure or whatever happens. They will see it as a lesson rather than feeling sorry for themselves. So I think in terms of creating confidence in children, one thing I have noticed, which I coach on, is public speaking and presentation skills, for example. And my kids often come to me like, "Mommy, I've got this essay, could you please help me?" So we work a lot on how one should present themselves and use the storytelling. It's not even given this at school. I mean, this should be the main subject. It's such an easy thing, and it's nothing like, you don't have to touch base on my content. But why not also give them my content? I deliver content in a very sensitive way. Children should actually hear that, you can go through war, you can go through because they need to learn new history. It's all about the old history. They don't get books with new history, and I think my book has that.
It's not relevant. Do you know, it's so funny you brought the book up, because you're talking about storytelling here.
Yeah.
You're talking about storytelling. I remember, very few actually, but I remember the talks at school where people were invited to come in and you learnt from, and the people that just talked out of a textbook and so on, you don't remember them. The ones that had a story to tell. You have unbelievable stories to tell, and you tell them really well. And so doing this is great, but you've written a book, Unbroken.
Yeah.
Why did you write it, and why should somebody read it?
I wrote it as a product to raise awareness and help charities. That was the main thing. And little did I know that I have inspired people to speak out against abuse, to say no to something that no longer serves you and makes them grow, and ultimately, do better things in life. I've received messages saying, "You've just saved me, I was suicidal," or I have cancer, you made me feel like I could beat cancer. And I didn't know I could reach people in such way. I just thought I was raising awareness for human trafficking. I didn't know I was inspiring people to say no to other things that it was it was hurting them.
I mean, if you stop there, that's reason enough to write the book, let alone all the other storytelling and so on, because you're influencing / saving lives, which also answers the question of why they should read it. What's next for you? So it feels like that this person that has just used the word flourishing, and thriving, it feels like there's real ambition flowing off you to still do a lot more alongside the campaigning and so on. But what if you could sort of make anything happen as Lurata Lyon, what would you achieve?
I'd love to be heavily involved in bringing down the level of human trafficking that's going on, and surprisingly going on in our own country here in the UK. When I came across women that are being trafficked here in the UK, British nationals, by British nationals, I was completely gobsmacked, because I thought this happened at war, where people are more vulnerable, and maybe, as we say, to other countries. We don't think it's happening here, because this is my safe place, England is my home. I'm very grateful. To see British nationals being trafficked as young as 14, or children being trafficked for sex trafficking, for human trafficking, I'm sorry, I can't live with this. I just don't feel like it's being done enough. So I've taken it up on myself to work on a documentary. I want to create a documentary to share what's going on.
Awareness.
Yeah, raise the awareness, bring the beam, straight to the problem. And hopefully that we can save girls, we can save the children from being victims of such crimes.
Yeah, you need to do that. I mean, my naivety, how big is the scale of it? I don't know. Is it on a micro scale, or is it really quite a big movement, particularly in the UK?
It is quite big. Yeah.
Shocking.
I mean, globally, it's about 150 million people get trafficked every year. It's a lot. 150 million. This is statistics I got from a CIA agent before I published the book, about 2022, 23 roughly.
That's a massive number.
It's a huge number, and I was shocked. I didn't know what to expect, and they all for different reasons. So it's not just for sex exploitation, some are just for other things, and it's sick. But in the UK, the number is still pretty high. I mean, if I could get to interview at least 5 people, 5 people straight away, imagine what's going on there that we don't know.
Yeah, you've got to make that happen. And
yes.
We're going to run out of time in context of, I could talk to you for a lot longer, but just flipping it back to you, and in context of the fact that when you went going back to the fact that you found the gym and you understood how that made you feel and fresh air and so on. Anyone looking at you now and being inspired by you, what is it that you do that works for you both mentally and physically? Is there a routine? Are you up early in the morning and doing a workout and meditating? What are the things that you swear by that you can recommend?
So good you asked me this, because nobody does. I have found a lot of people put themselves under pressure. So what fits one person's lifestyle doesn't fit the other. Same with personal training, same with nutrition, same with sleep patterns, same. So all I say is, don't stress about it. You don't have to necessarily wake up early and do the chores that I do. As and when you do wake up, start your day with something that makes you feel good. For me, is music. That is positive music, not some kind of love song that's going to bring you down and think about your ex or what have you. So good music that's going to charge you up, that you're going to want to go out and have that walk with your dog or run or whatever you want to do, play tennis, whatever. Even 5-10 minutes around the park, around the block, just get some fresh air. You become creative, and then some of the issues that you might be thinking of, you might get an answer to.
Yeah, it's good advice.
Yeah, eating. Be mindful of what you eat. When they say you are what you eat, it really is. I mean, treat yourself well. But the biggest thing is how do you speak to yourself? And I said this before. Most people are so nice to other people, yet they are so nasty to themselves. The internal voice, I know, it's like, you're this, you're that. It's like, who gives you the right to speak to
your
yourself?
friends like that. Yeah.
No.
I think there's sometimes, I'm really hard on myself.
We can be, we all can. And even sometimes I bring it up on myself and I'm like, no, I'm not doing this.
It's a conscious effort to swap the inner bitch voice, if you like, out.
As soon as it creeps in, you're like, I'm sorry. You need to switch off that like nagging thing that is trying to bring you down and say, no, Lurata said, I am beautiful. You have to say this to yourself
out
in
loud?
Your head. Or if you want it out loud, I tell myself, sometimes it really takes guts to face the mirror and look at yourself and say, God damn it, you are beautiful. I love you. I'm so proud of you. I had to recognize that in myself, because I thought Lurata that survived was a different identity to who Lurata is now. And I always keep thanking her. And people are getting confused. It's like, what? Because I say, I would like to thank Lurata that survived. It's like, I need to thank myself. It's not past tense. It's still me. So I'm really, you got to have these steps. But yeah.
Everything about this conversation has been kind of the why behind I wanted to do the programme in the first place. You are such an inspiration. Thank you for making time to talk to me today.
Thank you,
Lurata.
Thank you.